Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about the character creator export process for Unity Universal Render Pipeline. This is my own shaders called Human Shader Pack. I've been working on these recently to make them work a little bit better with the character creator characters. So as you can see, when I rotate the light around, we get the back scattering in the ears, and we get a little bit of SSS happening in the head as the light moves around. There's a lot of controls in these shaders for the hair, the eyes and the skin. The eyes, I've actually swapped those out manually. So once I've imported the mesh, I just went to the eyes themselves and turned them off or deleted them, and then replaced my own eyes and childed those to the eye bones. So as you can see here, so these are actually eyes from the eye shader pack, and these can be easily customized for any kind of eye color you like. For example, I can easily change these to a nice bright blue or green color, anything like that. Even make it match the hair a little bit, look really cool. Pupil size and everything can be changed. The eyes automatically dilate with the light as well, so when you rotate the light around, they'll dilate. You can change the amount that you want them to dilate and the size and things. So if I go down to dilation here, and I have them dilate a little bit more, that means that when the light moves, they're going to dilate a lot more like this. There's also caustic effects and things like that. The hair, the most important thing, I guess, trying to get the hair to work correctly straight from Character Creator is where a lot of the pain is found, because of the way that Character Creator makes these soft looking hairs using transparent type shaders, and transparency has always had issues with the sort order. Things will pop or look like they're in front or behind, or just be a complete mess. And that's because all of these little pixels, they end up with a certain level of opacity, and to calculate the perfect opacity pixel takes a long time. These renderers aren't designed for that. That's more of an offline render feature, and if you look closely at Character Creator at the hair, you'll see there is some defects there. Now what I've chose to do is go with something called dither effect, and it might not look brilliant inside the scene view, but it looks fine in the game view. Now I've just raised this up twice so you can see kind of what you get, but this is the actual pixels that you'd see in game, more or less at the correct scale, and it doesn't look too bad. So I'm just going to click on the hair and show you the setup for that. Just go here, and there's the hair here. Okay, so first off, you need to convert the bump map that Character Creator gives you into a normal map. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You can go to a site called Normal Map Online and try and get the best normal map from there. A process I like to use, which I'll show you in a second, is to take the bump map and do some Photoshop processes on it, just to make it work a little bit nicer. So as you can see, I've managed to get the strands looking a little bit nicer here. So I'm just going to put this back to 1 scale so you can see this character. I'm just going to rotate around a little bit, and everything looks pretty nice, especially when it's in motion. You'll see a little bit of pixelated noise here, but that's the dither shader doing its job. Now if I click on the hair again, you'll see there's actually control of the dither amount. You can turn it so there's none at all, and it's just a complete kind of cut off. You can change the threshold, but this dither is also going to be used, but alpha clip will give you so much, but it's a very harsh end. The dither will help get rid of some of that. and you can choose how much you want to see. There's a few other features that I've recently added to help the hair sort of pop a little bit. There's a great dependency on the normal map as well being used in the shader. There's color control. Now what I've done is I've took the color map and actually turned it into this VRTC map I use, and that's like red, green, blue and alpha channels for different things. The red channel deals with variation in the tones, so in the shader you get variant 1 and variant 2, so you can change those two tones. So the dark tones become one color and the light tones of the red channel gets another color. So you can really kind of customize the look of this. These deal with the root and the tip, and I've had to paint some areas or kind of make some areas green for the root and blue for the tip. Okay, so that's areas that were turned blue. You can see I can turn these into a third shade. I can change the amount through the alpha channel. So you see taking that away actually brings out this tone. And the gloss is what's controlled with the alpha channel of these first two. So that's what I'm saying here. So the gloss is the alpha channel. In this case it's the power of these. You can try these and see what works. You might have to paint a bit more of the color where you want that control. So in this case the variation is red, green deals with the root, and blue deals with the tip, and alpha deals with the cutoff. Okay, so it's not too hard to get your head around. Okay, that's the bump power for the normal map. If you want your hair to look a little bit more metallic, we get main highlight color because in this shader there's two highlights that give it that hair look. I'm just going to put the gloss down for this because hair isn't that glossy. We'll let the highlights do the shining, so we can change different things like position and power, strength and exponent. The exponent deals with the spread going out the way, and you can also tint both to be whatever tone you like. You might want to match the hair tones a little bit just so it looks like it's really shining, and maybe a little kind of hue shift here and there, give it a bit of character. Okay, so if the normal map's not good, then it's not going to look good, and also you need to watch for this kind of effect. That's the shadow casting these dots, but here it doesn't look too bad. So don't worry so much about the scene view not looking correct. It's because of the different scales and the fact it doesn't do any anti-aliasing. So what I've got set up in the camera is the sub-pixel anti-aliasing. There's also fast, and that smoothens things out a bit more. You want to make sure you check these in post-processing as well. I'm also using post-process global volume. To add that, all you have to do is go to volume, global volume, and then it will ask you to create a new volume setup. So once you've made a new one of those, you can go in here and start adding these features. You can also do it from here. It's the same thing. Okay, you've got chromatic aberration. That also helps to alleviate some of the pixel noise there from the shader for the hair. Post exposure, contrast, all these things are going to help. I'm going to go back to the hair just because it looks like it could use a little bit more softness down here. So I'm going to go down to the alpha clip threshold and just make sure I get to a kind of halfway point. Now 0.5 is what you want there, and the dither amount, so I'm going to make that full, and that way it's going to help it a little bit down here. Cool. There's also other things like the SSS. So things get a little kind of subsurface scattering, base illumination if you want the hair to have a little bit of a glow, and the whole effect of that. The alpha level here as well of the whole hair, if you want to make it fade out or change it for something else, you can just use this slider. There's also extra cutting, but it's not compatible with the UV layout because all it does is cuts the bottom. If you did make an extra texture, it would have to match the UV layout, so you don't need that one. And these all relate to that. Push hairs is going to push the hairs out the way, as you can see, like this. You might want that just a little bit. So 0.1 or 0.001, just for a little bit of adjustment. Okay, I'm just going to move the light around so you can see things a bit better. You can see the hair has got too much highlight, so I'm just going to go back to that. So that's here. Let's tone these down. Move the position as well, if it helps. And take away the gloss. Or add it in if you like it. Give it more of a wet look. Okay, I'll just move the character around so we can see it in the proper viewport. You see the hair's looking a little bit green here. I think that's because of some point lights. Yep, it's just adding. So this blue colour has actually been added. Make that more like that. That looks correct. Okay. So the hair was the hardest thing to get right out of each because the eyes were all ready to go. Just had to change the eye color and size and things. I'll just show you the hair texture setup. So this is the one I'm talking about here. I'm just going to show and fold it and show in Photoshop how I made that. So if you look at each channel in Photoshop or GIMP is a free type of Photoshop, you'll see the red channel has got grayscale values, so red and green, and I can choose a nice kind of area for that to work a bit better. Red and dark red, basically, grayscale. Green channel deals with the root, and blue channel deals with the tip, and altogether it makes this crazy looking texture, and the opacity deals with the cutout. Okay, so if I save that and go back and made a slight change, that will update and it will change things ever so slightly. The normal map came from the bump map, but for me it never exported that, so I basically did it through the color map, or in fact I did it through the opacity, or the red channel of here was a good one. So you can copy this and do a new image. Oops, just a new image. Paste that in there, and to get a normal map from here, you basically go to Filter, 3D, Generate Normal Map. You can also use XNormal Online or any other normal map generator. So you see it starts to turn all these little bumps into this normal map. There's a few other things you can do before you do that, like using the oil paint filter. Make sure you're on RGB mode and flatten your layers. Stylize oil paint, and that will help just to smoothen things out. You see the before and after, kind of gets rid of some of that noise. You see the difference there, how that smoothens out. So you might want to process that and then copy it and then do an undo and then paste that in above it. Let's just duplicate this and do it again. Oil paint, and then play with the opacity so you've got kind of nice halfway, so about 70% on that new layer, and merge layers, and then go ahead and process the normal map. So that is 3D normal map. And you see this can look a little bit nicer. So that was the process that I used to get better looking streaks, because initially it just looked pretty bad. Okay, a good way to check this is to change your view to double size and then just scale out a bit, about 60 or 70%, and it's going to be something a bit more in line with what you're going to get in game. It might actually be as much as 50%, because what you want to do if you're going for a high-end look like this, you're going to up res and downscale, so you get a little bit of filtering from that. Now Unity can do that. If you go into the project settings, you can set it up to the quality to be, well, in fact it's under, I think it's graphics, oh, it's under this pipeline setting. Okay, so you click this and close it, and it's already selected it, and you can change it so that you can change the upscaling. So you could do 2 times MSAA or twice the render scale. So if I take this off back to normal, about there, and zoom in a bit, you will see that if I change this to 2 times scale, I have to change this, I think. There we go, you can see that changing. So 2 times scale there, and you got different anti-aliasing modes. I think these don't show until you play the game. So that's your render scale there, and the anti-aliasing. But this for me doesn't work as good as simply changing the resolution and then downscaling half. Gives you a better look in the viewport. I've no idea how this would look in game, or the performance hit might be quite high, but if you're after a better look, then I recommend using HD render pipeline. It will use a better anti-aliasing method called temporal, and it does a better job at smoothing the hairs out. Okay, I'm going to go back to the hair again, because yep, it's the most sought after to get right. We've got some noise power here as well. Can add some noise to the hair just to help, again, alleviate some of the noise. So it's 2 different spreads. We've got X and Y, but when the UVs are going in every direction, it's a good idea to keep these numbers close together, and we can make that affect the spread a little bit. And it kind of helps to add a bit more detail where we don't have it. We can use the fake occlusion here to get some information from the normal maps to help break these up. You see the dither really helps to get that soft look. And go back up to the SSS here. Just want to make this much better. Doesn't seem to be working as well now. Okay. Got the hair bias if you want to make the colors stronger. I'm just going to go back to the eye here. I'm going to readjust that. Go for a nice brown eye. So there's two tones for the eyes. It's like a dark tone and a bright tone. You can also change the eyeball tint. We've got different scattering effects here as well to make them look a bit softer, as well as some shading power. You can change these out for a stronger one or a softer one. Different stylized ones as well. So I like the stronger one, it works quite well, and you see a little bit nice red in the eye, and I think they look quite good. Don't worry about any defects that you see round about the eye here in this view. It doesn't do much filtering here. So the eyelashes are actually part of the skin, the way it exported it. So I had to make sure I supported some alpha clip. So as you can see, you can use that plus the dither amount. And I think, I wonder if it's got a mask here. No. So just got the alpha clip. I usually set that to 0.5, and then you can play with the dither amount, or if it's not shown up so well, just put that down. And you see it looks nice and soft in this viewport because we're at double scale, but downscaling half. Now there's a good tool for that called MadGoat, and it does that without you having to do this setup. But I'm sure there's a way to do it, and you get a good result there. Let's have a look at the skin. So when CC3 exported the skin, it basically asked it to combine everything into one mesh based on the type. So that basically gave me the whole body skin with the eyelashes. I think the hair cap is separate. The hair cap and the hair were combined into one, but it's two different materials as far as I remember. So there's a body here. Let's just check that. So that I think the hair is separated into one material, actually one type. So it's the hair cap plus the hair itself, and yeah, it just floats above the actual skull, because if we make this fade out, you can see the whole head still there. So it's pretty good if you want to swap out hairs later. You can, you know, just vanish them that way, or you bring them all out together as, I think, as garments or something, and you can hide them just in here. So I think the head might be somewhere here. There's the hair mesh, so you could basically just hide it that way and swap it for a different one. Good for customization. So again, let's look at the skin. Skin is built up of your main light tint. If you want to tint the light, it's very hard to see that actually. Don't know if it's doing it anymore, but you don't see it too much now. Let's have a look at the shader and just see everything's working in light tint. Yeah, it's just a small feature, right? And you got your main albedo tint here as well for tinting the skin. So if you want to make it look like dark skin, you can do that quite easy here. Might want to adjust the SSS color to be something more appropriate. But now when I rotate the light, you'll see it still does the scattering and things, and it still looks pretty decent. You can change any tones that you need to match the skin type. Let's bring that back up to a light skin. And you can change the SSS back to a kind of pinker tone. There's a few tweaks here that affect the way the SSS works. Now there's an alpha channel that I had to add, and I also had to make the SSS map, and basically it's the colors that are under the skin, so it's very close to the skin color, but what I've done is I've made it a little bit more grayscale. So if I click on that, you'll see here it's kind of like a muddy brown, but in the alpha channel is where the thinnest parts are. Like often the ear and the nostrils get affected by light. You know, like foliage, grass, leaves, they're so thin when light hits the other side it basically scatters through the surface of it. Well, that's called subsurface scattering, and it happens to the thin objects. CC3 didn't give me these maps, so I had to make them myself. I'll show you how to make one of these. So I'll just go into Photoshop, just close these out, and let's get the 4 meshes combined. Diffuse, I think, I don't know if it's this one. Oh, it's the meta. Okay, let's try that again. 4 meshes combined. Maybe this one. Yep. Okay, so what I did was I just duplicated the layer so that I could compare it with the original, and Control L or levels adjust, and just like tighten these up a bit like that, and that's kind of good enough for a subsurface color. But I also want to have extra control, so I don't want to be locked into this orange tone. So I do Control U, and then I just desaturate that a bit, somewhere about here, and that way I still have extra control of the color inside Unity. And another thing you want to do is paint areas white in a new layer where you think the thinnest parts are. Now normally you would do this in a 3D application or process it as a thickness map, but you can basically paint some parts of the ears with a soft brush. It doesn't have to be perfect, just those thin areas. You can do like little bits of the chin and the brow, bits like that there as well, and the fingers or the hands, you can do those. So I think that's those there. Okay, and then I'm just going to add another layer. This layer will be filled with black, and I'll just merge those down together. Now I'll just do a little blur on those, just a little bit, about 7 or 8 pixels, and then Control L just to levels adjust it a bit to take away some of the dark areas, so that I'm sure I'm within those UV areas, and I'll tighten it down a bit as well from the top, like that. Okay, I'm going to copy that layer, Control A, Control C, right, and I can basically just put it in the bin and go to my channels and add an alpha channel and paste it with Control Shift V, right, and that's actually made an alpha channel. I'll just get rid of that now. I want to save this as a targa so that I get the alpha channel. See, I've done one already. I'll just call this weight 2. This one might be better. And go back in here, back to the body. Select that import. Back to the body, and I'm going to select or drag in this one. And you'll see the first thing it changed was like the eyelashes, because the eyelashes are part of this. And they seem to have picked up some of that tone. So we can use the tweaks here to fix that. Just bring those all the way to the right. And we've got the ability to change the scattering color. So just have to move the light around to see the effect of that. So you see it's affecting the nose a little bit here, and the ear. There's other things that you can change. If you think the light shouldn't be affecting here, you can actually go down to the skin material at the bottom and play around with these settings here. These are like just subsurface controllers, just to help pinpoint the area that it should be affecting. You've also got these controls. Be careful with the values though. And that looks fine. You can debug where the scattering happens with a slider, but I may remove this later. Micro detail power, that helps to break the smoothness of the skin up a bit, and obviously the tiling, you don't want that too small. A little bit of base glow to keep the skin alive. You might not want that too much. And metalness if you want it to look a little bit metallic, but most of the time no. And smoothness if you want to fine tune that, you can. Also got Albedo Desaturation, so you can basically saturate it to the left and desaturate to the right. So it's not going to look like this in game, it's going to look more like this. Especially with post-processing and anything else you can do to help alleviate the look of it. The light's just a little bit too warm, so I'll just make that a bit cooler. Back to the skin. I just want to tone down the smoothness, a bit like that. And I'm going to readjust the hair. See if there's anything else I can talk about with the hair. Yeah, let's just remove this tab. So yeah, the normal map, the VRTC map, which stands for Variation Root Tip Cutout, and yeah, there's all sorts of nice controls here. Make that a bit more like that actually, it's quite nice. Be careful with the bias, it can go a bit crazy. Yeah, I can see a tiny bit of the scattering work in there. Go for some wild red here. Okay, that pretty much is everything. So again, the main things that help this is your anti-aliasing and the post-processing. So if I turn that off, you'll see everything looks a bit bland. If I turn off the anti-aliasing here and I go back to 1920 and make this 1, that's more or less kind of default what you get. And I'll just move the light around. You can see it looks kind of okay, but a lot more comes from the post-processing. You can also like mess around with the sky exposure. If I make this a bit brighter and go to the reflection probe and toggle it off and on, that will update. I'm just going to make the strength back to 1, and let's rotate her around a bit. I think it looks pretty good considering it's URP and there's no post-process here. The dither noise is ironed out when you change this to fast approximate and post-processing. Subpixel, you can try these. And also when you change the scale to double, this down to half now. So about 50 it should be. Yep, a little bit nicer there. See what one is better. The post-process volume, you got loads of control with things here, contrast and things that really help the image. It's almost photorealistic. The eyes might be too white. I recommend keeping your eyes away from being too white. So I'm just going to like tone them down a bit here. I'll go for a kind of pinkish tone, stay fairly low, something like that. That really helps them shine a bit more as well. You can add a tiny bit of metalness if it helps. Doesn't hurt, it won't hurt it too much. You can add metalness to various things. I don't recommend doing too much metalness because it wouldn't look very realistic. You can play with the lens gloss. You can rotate the irises. The eye size, so you can make them really big, as well as the iris size to match. So she might have really big eyes like this, and yeah, looks a bit terrifying. Just make sure if you do that that you make everything else relatively big, so the pupil now a bit bigger. You might have to play with the dilation because the pupils are dilated. It's hard to tell the size, but yeah, you can make these quite big like that. It's quite unrealistically big though, so I'm just going to put them back. I'll just do undo a few times. And let's rotate her back. Let's have a look at the skin one more time. So you can do this too emissive, SSF to emissive would help the light show up a little bit better, and play around with the bias and scale if you want to kind of fine tune that. Let's rotate the light around again just to check everything. So it looks quite good in the dark. We've got a little bit of subsurface on the hair. I'm going to check that out again. And yeah, you can see a little bit of something happening there. I think I might enhance this a bit more. Okay, I'm just going to open that up and see if I make a quick adjustment. So this is what I use to make the shaders, in case you're interested. This is Amplify Shader, and this is what the hair shader looks like right now. I'm just going to check out why we're getting a little bit of interesting effects here. Well, I know probably I don't need that. Okay, let's check that out. It's not changed much there. If you need any adjustments made to any of these shaders, let me know. I'll just put that back to normal. I can look at this later in my own time, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So in Character Creator, I'll jump into that now. It did actually crash on me earlier where I was want to show the process. But once you've chose your base mesh and hair type, you basically want to export all by type, merge and export by type, and that way you'll get the separate maps. You will be missing certain maps like bump maps for the hair in the demo at least, but I figured out, I think it is actually there, but I never used it. And you'll be missing the SSS and weight map that I showed you. The eyes, you just have to swap those out. And the hair, use my shader for that. It's a good idea to use the VRTC shader, but I do have another one, standard version. Let's just go to the hair shaders. And you see, oh, yeah, I've not actually created it yet, but due to bring it in soon, but it will just replace the VRTC map with the albedo. It means you don't have a lot of color control, but you definitely have enough. Pretty sure I made one up, but I don't know where it is here, so I'll have a look for that soon. Let's just see if we got it here somewhere. No, it's definitely in a different pack. I think it's in Unity 2020. So I'll bring it back in and I'll include that in the next update. But let's just have a quick look at Character Creator when it loads, if it's loading. So it did crash on me earlier, so I don't know if it's gonna crash again. So these shaders won't look the same as Character Creator because they have their own unique shaders, and maybe one day they're going to have Unity versions of those to compete with my ones, but for now you're kind of stuck with using what works. Let's say cancel for that. Let's go and look to see what's happening there. It's still loading. Going to change the eyes up a bit. It'll start to look a little bit weird. And oh, okay, so this is now open. So once you've got your hair added and the clothes added and things, what you want to do is go to File, Export, FBX Clothed Character, and yeah, if you're using a demo like me, you'll get those warnings, but I'm not going to be using this. I tend to make characters from scratch, but there's a pretty good starting point with these. And what to do is click on Installod and then merge this. Okay, we just want to have this all grayed out. That's fine. We can do bigger map types for more detail. Recommend 4096, but if you're quite happy with 2048, change this by type so that you get the hair, clothes, body and everything else together as one. Obviously we don't need the eyes, but it's going to give us the eyes anyway. It's no big deal. And embed textures, you can do that, but it's still going to organize things. As you've seen in my previous video, it kind of organizes them in a weird way. in different folders based on each part, and it only embeds so many. So you have to set those up, or I think you can use one of their auto setup tools, which I've never used. So once you export that and import it, you'll end up with what you see me do in my other video. If you want more information on that, I'll put the link in the description below. Everything else is pretty good to go. So yeah, so going from character creator to Unity here, we end up with a pretty decent result. Let's just scale that up a bit and move the light around. Oops, this one. The hair is softish, you get the pixelated effect until you use some kind of anti-aliasing solution. And I recommend MadGo because it upscales and then downscales again to give you this kind of effect. Be sure to play around with the shaders. If you've bought Human Shader Pack URP and you want this project, let me know. If you want me to set everything up for you, it takes a bit of time. Sometimes it can take 3 or 4 hours for me to get everything working correctly. I charge a rate for that, but you can get in touch. Yeah, so again, just go around the different materials and check everything is the way you want it. It takes a bit of time to refine everything, and this will only get you so far. But as you can see, we can add a nice little soft tone in there and play around with these biases and the tone, the saturation, the light tint. It's very subtle, that actually. Don't really see it so well. The skin tone, which works quite nice. Yep, and that's pretty much it. Yep, the smoothness as well. If you want a kind of wet look, you don't want it to be too wet like this. You want to be very subtle with everything. Just a tiny touch is enough. Metalness if you want the kind of bronze look, but you don't need that. You can turn these down. They're all based off these textures, but you can deviate them, like add or subtract to their values. And we've got the adjustment for the SSS to emissive, so it glows a bit more. You got your light biases, minimum glow, if you want that, just so the skin has a little bit of glow in it. So in the dark, that it still has a little bit of something. Let's test it in different light conditions as well, make sure it's all holding up with different lighting. I think it looks pretty good considering it's a universal render pipeline and all that. Yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to ask below. I'll try and cover it in another video. Sorry this is such an extended video, but I'm fairly new to character creator and I'm trying to get the best of both. And yeah, recommend using the Human Shader Pack for this now. Quite confident in the amount of changes that I managed to make to work for this. And I'll catch you in the next video. So thanks for watching. Bye.